If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Women of Golf Show. I'm Ted Odorico, and joining me is LPGA professional Cindy Miller, and we are your hosts. We're broadcasting live every Tuesday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern here on the blogtalkradio.com network, bringing you some of the best golfers, teaching professionals, and entrepreneurs helping to elevate women's golf. We're so glad you decided to join us this morning, so grab your coffee and let's get started.
All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Women of Golf Show. I'm Ted Odorico, and right alongside is Legends Tour player and LPGA professional Cindy Miller, and we are your hosts here on the Women of Golf. Good morning, Cindy.
Good morning, Ted. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, as always, and I know that you're doing equally as well, and we're very, very excited once again to be here on a Tuesday morning. And we've got a great show for you coming up. Our guest's going to be a little bit late coming out, and I'll tell you a little bit about him in a few moments. But his name is Dr. Keis. He's a PH.D. Speaker, author, podcast host, and coach, and he'll be joining us in a few moments. And I will, as I said, tell you a little bit more about him. But we're very, very excited. As I mentioned last week, we're in our 7th season here on the Women of Golf Show, so we're very, very excited about that. And I guess while we wait for Ken to come out, Cindy, you and I will enter into the no BS zone, I guess we'll call this this morning. And I thought of something really. Anyways, how are you doing, by the way?
I'm doing well, and you?
I'm doing very well. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Were you not, or are you just getting ready to go down? You had in February a boot camp, correct?
2 boot camps, yes. 2.
Are you just getting ready to go now?
Yeah, we're leaving Thursday. We've got 2 boot camps, a junior boot camp first for 3 days, and then we've got an adult boot camp for 4 days at Orange County National in Orlando, Florida. Yes,
very, very good. Yeah, it's a great facility, too. I had never actually been there before. I didn't actually, in past times when I've been to the PGA show, which of course you and I were at this season, I never made it out to the demo days. I didn't really just, I just sort of hung around the main hall, if you will. But this season I decided to go, and I'm telling you, it was as windy as one could imagine. I felt kind of bad. It was sunny, but it was just really windy and of course cold. As it typically sometimes is in January. But it was a lot of fun. It was interesting to see some of the latest and greatest. And that brings me to what I wanted to talk about while we wait for Ken to come on board in a few moments. There's been that sort of conversation happening again. I don't know if you've picked it up or not, Cindy, but I thought it was one for you and I maybe to talk a little bit about. And it's really 2 parts. One is equipment, and the other is golf course. The first part of it is equipment. We've heard many years great players like Nicholas and many others talk about that they felt the equipment was getting to a point where the ball was going a mile, and it was just making the golf ball particularly. There's been a lot of controversy as to whether it was making many great golf courses here in the U.S. and around the world obsolete. I want to get your thoughts on that, and then I'm going to mention to you the other issue with the golf course. What are your thoughts with the equipment? Do you think that we maybe have gone too far with the technology, that it's just making it to a point where, a lot of people are just belting it a mile, and it's making a lot of golf courses just not, up to snuff, so to speak?
Well, I personally have never had that challenge. I've always tried to purchase yardage.
Right.
But I must tell you that I was fit for the new Callaway Maverick irons a month ago.
Ooh.
And the TrackMan was telling me that I was hitting my 7-iron, or their 7-iron, 149 yards. And
wow.
I can tell you that I have never hit a 7-iron 149 yards. And so when we ordered the irons, I asked our rep about the hybrids, and he said, well, I don't think I would order anything. And again, I'm looking forward to going to Florida because I'm going to play this weekend. Because
right.
I think you're going to hit these irons so much farther than you've ever hit that we don't want to order hybrids because we don't know how far everything's going to go. And I'm like,
right.
good point. So that being said, if that's the case, then yeah, I would tell you that that's a fact, that the equipment is definitely going too far. And the 7-iron's probably bent like a 5-iron, right?
Right.
And then it's got a hot shaft on it, if you will. And yeah, so who knows? But I've never had the problem, to be honest with you.
Right. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I think it's pardon me. I think it's good in some ways. I mean, obviously there's been a lot of game improvement with some of the equipment out there. It's helped people, especially in the irons. It's helped people to be a little bit more accurate. It's certainly not going to cure everything. You still have to obviously understand the basics and the fundamentals and that, but it certainly does help on mishits and things like that. But I think really where you see the biggest gains has been obviously at the tour level and the professionals. They're able to, I mean, it's just ungodly what some of these guys and gals are hitting off the tee and what they're approaching the greens with the equipment. So I think at the professional level, I would like to see them, not drastically, but I would like to see them scale it back a little bit, because I think that they have gotten to a point where it's just, it's almost gotten to a pitch and putt show, if you will. They're all coming in with wedges to every green, listen, as well as I do, Cindy, we both love golf. We wouldn't be in the business that we're in, but when you watch the tournaments every weekend and you're seeing them basically hitting 2 or 3 clubs in their golf bag out of 14, it gets boring. I'll be honest, it's boring because there's no challenge anymore. There doesn't seem to be. It's all about power and about distance, and for me, it's just not as exciting. Now, it's not as noticeable on the ladies' tours because they traditionally don't hit quite as far as the men do. But again, they're playing a little bit closer up in some cases than obviously what the men are. But you're not seeing as big of an impact, I don't think. But definitely on the men's tour, I mean, it's gotten to the point now where it's just it's just ridiculous. What are your thoughts on that? Would you like to see them make changes, do you think, at the pro level, maybe adjust the equipment somewhat so it's not going quite as far?
They're never going to do that just for pro equipment. There's no way. And again, you got to stop and remember, when I played on the LPGA Tour, we didn't work out. We never worked out. And, well, maybe once in a while. But now, I mean, there's a fitness trailer. There's a physical therapist. There's a chiropractor. They've got a traveling medical team going with the tour every week to make sure that these players are in optimum health. And so they're stronger. They hit it better. They've got a coach for everything. And still some guys hit it longer than others. I mean, there's still a difference between, a Jim Furyk and a Dustin Johnson, if you will,
right,
or a Webb Simpson and a Justin Thomas. If you saw that at the Hawaiian Open or the Tournament of Champions, Patrick Reed out driving Justin by 30, 40 yards. So that's always going to happen, but they will never change the equipment just for the professionals. No. And again, it's not just the equipment, it's the ball. Everybody wants to hit it further. I mean, they've had to change golf courses. So, yeah.
Yeah,
they're never going to do that just for pros. And to be honest with you, I think enough is enough. You know, they have to regulate. I'm all for regulating with all the manufacturers, but that's about, you know, you just can't keep making golf courses longer.
Right. And you know, we've seen what's happened over you know, the last decade or so, particularly since Tiger came on the scene, what they've done to Augusta National. I mean, they've made a lot of modifications to Augusta just to be able to accommodate, you know, driver, you know, obviously he's not the most accurate on tour, but, you know, he can belt it a mile. And then you had, you know, players like Bubba Watson and others that have come out and just, you know, basically cutting the corner off of every hole. And just able to get it down so close to the green that it you know, it's just not, certainly Augusta is always going to be a challenge, but it makes it less challenging when, you know, you've got players hitting it that far. And you're exactly right. The golf ball is another area, and that's one area that Jack really, and Nicholas, of course, I'm talking about, really talked about over the years, is that he felt that the golf ball, the technology that was being put into it now, was so much so that it was just making a lot of golf courses obsolete. And, I mean, you know, when you look back at the stats, I mean, you know, when he was playing, they were hitting it pretty far. I mean, they were hitting it 275 plus, 285 in some cases. And when you consider the equipment they were using at the time, you know, that's pretty darn far, even by today's standards. So, you know, it's not just the equipment, as you said, it's the golf ball as well. And one last thing, and I just want to touch on this. I see that Ken's on board, so we'll bring him out here in just a couple of minutes. But the other area is the golf course they've talked about for years as well. And now I'm sort of digressing a little bit to the amateur side of things. Gosh, a lot of these golf courses out there that they've built over the last couple decades are just, in my opinion, too tough for the average player. I mean, the professionals have their own issues out there, but they're better equipped to handle it. What are your thoughts about the golf course? Have we been making them too tough for the recreational golfer? And do we need to start changing some of our future models? I'm not saying get rid of what we've already got out there, but maybe adding to the canvas, if you will, and not making them so tough. What are your thoughts?
I agree. But on the other hand, on one hand, you're saying that the golf ball is going too far because of the clubs. And then the next minute you're saying the golf courses are too tough. So here's what I believe. We need to educate the player and make sure they're aware that they should play the tees that fit them. And you're going to always have the big boys with the egos that say, well, I'm not playing from there. But U.S. Kids Golf has got the whole thing right. They allow these children to play from tee boxes that they can reach the green. So they believe that everyone should be able to shoot even par. And I just purchased Operation 36, and all players are required to start at 25 yards away from the hole, and they have to shoot 36 before they can move up to the next level. So once, you know, you get to a point where you can't reach the greens, you need to go back up a tee. That's my opinion. Right.
Yeah, I think, you know, I don't want to see them start making drastic. I mean, you know, golf courses have been what they've been. Obviously, you know, they've made them more challenging in a lot of ways. I think it's really been more for beautification. I mean, if you look at some of the more modern day golf courses, especially some of the resort courses now, I mean, it's like a work of art in some cases. So I don't really want to see a lot of change, and I think you hit it spot on. I think we have to educate the consumer and get away from the stigma of, you know, moving up a tee box or even two tee boxes. You know, put away the egos, as you suggest, and let's be realistic in our play. You know, if you're a long hitter and you're accurate and you typically score well, you know, and if you want to challenge yourself a little bit more, there's nothing wrong with playing a little bit further back. But if you're a 25 handicap, you've got no business playing from the champions tees, in my opinion, or the championship tees. You need to move it up. You know, you're not doing anything but slowing up the play, and that also will help, I think, too, Cindy, with slow play. This is another issue as well. This is why it's taking 5-6 hours for people to finish their rounds, is because they're playing from a distance that they're not competent enough or capable of executing good golf shots from, and they're just slowing up everybody behind them. What do you think?
Absolutely. In fact, I've often said, gee, I ought to walk up there and give them a business card. I can help them play better.
You might need to put a billboard or something up at Orange County and say cindymiller.com. All right. We'll leave the no BS zone, if you will. I think that's it. We got to have that. We got to put that in the show. I think we got to have a no BS zone, if you will. We got to add that to our show schedule each week. I think it'd be fun and just have some light conversation. All right, we got a great guest this morning, Dr. Ken Keis. He is a foremost global authority on behavioral assessment strategies and processes. He's also an expert in leadership, purpose, and wellness, and he has authored over 4 million works of content, including 500 articles, 4 books, and a dozen assessments. He is the president and CEO of Consulting Resource Group International, Inc., or CRG for short. And he also hosts his own podcast, Secrets of Success. And who doesn't want to know those secrets? So, Cindy, let's welcome our very special guest this morning, Dr. Ken Keis.
Good morning.
Good morning, Cindy. How are you doing?
We're doing great, and we're so glad you got up really early for us.
Well, there you go. I don't know if I'm actually up. I think this just could be a recording.
Ah, okay. Well, here's a side note. You're both Canadians, so you should be big friends by the time we're done.
Well,
yeah.
By the way, I'm not sure if your business card's going to help me shoot better.
Well, you have to do something about it here. You have to pick up the phone and come in for a lesson.
Well, I know I'm invited, Cindy, for sure.
Yes. So let's get started. Can you tell us what you do and why you do it?
Well, I think in short, this is actually my like you, I've been in this business for a bit, so 31 years. Our number one purpose is to help other people to live, lead, and work on purpose, and to really help them to realize their potential. So you help people with their potential on the golf course. We do it in life and in business. So our tools and resources help people to get clear, to benchmark their capabilities in different areas, and we do that globally in 30 countries.
That's awesome. Awesome. Now, how did you get started?
I actually started on a dairy farm, so it's really close. It's the transitions just go straight across. I actually knew I knew when I was a young kid that I enjoyed speaking, and so I was doing a lot of emceeing even when I was 17, 18, 19 in community groups, and I actually had my own dairy farm in my late 20s, and I got up one morning and asked the question. I said, if I was still doing this 20 years from now, would that be okay? And I said, absolutely not. So I went and I was doing sales for an agriculture company, and then I bought a sales training franchise, and then it just transitioned from there. I was mentored by Dr. Terry Anderson, who founded CRG, and then I bought the company from him just under 20 years ago.
Wow. So it's more like being an entrepreneur and knowing what you want and taking control and doing it.
For sure, and I think what happens, even North America and U.S. and Canada, I think we have as good as opportunity, or maybe Australia, as any countries in the world, to go down the route that we want to go down. And in spite of all this opportunity, the majority of people still dislike what they do from mildly irritate to loathe. It's like 85%. So there's very few people that are in this passionate sweet spot. And, pardon for the golf metaphor, that sweet shot, but sweet spot. And it's actually a sad situation. So the last research is that around only 10% of people just absolutely love, are engaged in work, enjoy what they're doing. And, really, we just help people in that space. And then nowadays, and if you think about coaching even for golf's such a mental game, life's a mental game too. So how can we help people to be more emotionally intelligent, socially aware, socially awake, better leaders? And I'm just passionate about that. I don't even know exactly where it comes from, but my purpose is to help others to live, lead, and work on purpose.
That's awesome. Ted?
Well, good morning, Ken, and thank you for joining us. And as Cindy pointed out, my name is Ted Odorico, and I am also a fellow Canadian, so let me get that out of the way first. Whereabouts are you from, Ken?
I'm in Vancouver, so just an hour out of downtown Vancouver. Actually born in the city of Abbotsford, so I think you know a guy, Nick Taylor, who just won his first event. So he plays in a course, or his home course is about 8 minutes from my house.
Okay, very good. I'm originally from Ontario. Of course, now I reside in the U.S. here, but it's amazing, you know, how many. I never really realized this, but just how many Canadians are in the golf business, not just in the teaching side, but in other areas. And obviously, I know you're not in the golf business per se, but it's just interesting. It was kind of a small world, if you will. I want to ask you something, because you mentioned a couple of points about self-awareness and emotional intelligence. And you're exactly right in your point. I think most people don't understand really the important aspects of golf. They focus too much on the detail of their golf swing, how to hit it better, and obviously those issues are important. But getting out there really on the golf course, the purpose is to master the course. If you look at some of the best players, I mentioned some earlier, you know, Tiger and so forth, they are masters out in the golf course. Tiger's certainly not the best ball striker. We've seen much better out there, but he masters around the golf course. So if somebody's listening to the show this morning and wants to have a better awareness out there and wants to sort of clear their mind of the clutter and all of that, what are some things that you would suggest to them, or you would maybe encourage a coach or a teacher like Cindy to relay to their students?
Well, that's like a small question for my psychology degree. What do you think? Good question, Ted. Yeah, I think all of this. You know, here's the interesting research. Now, Cindy, you were talking about the medical team. There's also the sports psychologist, right? So, and why is that? Because people, they get in their head. You know, we're big tennis fans. So we just watch what happens there and how people kind of manage their emotions. Here's the latest research, which applies globally to our life, is that, and Dr. Tasha did this work in her book, Insights, is now a New York Times bestseller, is that what percentage of people believe that they know themselves and how they see themselves, Ted, and how they come across is congruent with how others people's opinion about them or how I experience you. So what percentage do you think that is, Ted?
I would say very, very high. I would say probably 90%.
You're very close, 95%. So 95% believe that they know themselves. And then what Tasha did with her students said, okay, let's go and interview people, all of Cindy's friends, of course, and say, what do they really think about her and how she comes across compared to her opinion? And the congruence, meaning how people experience you and how you come across with your opinion, only 10% was their alignment. So when we think about this business, so 85% of people are deluded, or they actually they don't even know that they don't know that they don't know. So one of the areas when we think about, you know, sports psychology or, you know, playing better or being better in life is that we just have to be open to this idea that we might not know ourselves. And then what we do in our assessments around personality or values or even things like self-worth, I suspect, and Cindy was, of course, you were a great guest on our show, Cindy, is where a lot of times people discount their own capabilities or discount. I mean, I'm sure you've had people who goes, I'll never be good at this game, or I really suck, or whatever, and they're in their head. So part of this is getting people to get clear about who they are, what they bring, and quite frankly, and again, this is a sad situation. Most people don't know what they don't know. So personality plays into it. There's some biophysical things that link back into it. So some people's sort of physical capacity for stress is greater than others, and then how do I manage that? Some people, let's say I have a value of tranquility, but I'm always in a conflict kind of situation. Well, then day in and day out, that is eroding my soul. So I'm not going to be able to be engaged, and I'm not going to be able to sustain that engagement. So even when people are, let's say I love golf, but the career that I choose and where I fit is there's all kinds of different opportunities within the industry. So maybe I'm an equipment repair person, which is mostly dealing with sort of those technical aspects, versus a coach helping with this individual. Right,
exactly. And you raise an interesting point too about, personalities and mindfulness. One of the things that I noticed, and Cindy, I think you might agree with this, is one of the problems that a lot of golfers have is they bring a lot of baggage to the golf course, and it can be a variety of things. It can be issues going on at work. It can be issues that maybe from past rounds of golf that they just don't seem to have developed a confidence level in their game. They still can be pretty decent golfers, but they've got this mindset. And a lot of it, too, is I equate to their personalities. If they're very outgoing and very enthusiastic and very positive people, certainly doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be shooting scratch when they're out in the golf course. But it adds, I think, to a better experience. They're not as hard on themselves. So when we're dealing with people, let's say, Ken, that are sort of downtrodden, they just don't feel good about themselves, how do you combat something like that? I mean, obviously we're not there to be psychologists, but we want to be able to improve their golfing experience. But when you've got somebody that's, Cindy, we've joked about this, hauling their baggage like they're on their way to, catching their flight, and they're bringing that to the golf course, how do we deal with that?
Well, I would say there are two easy things. First of all, you don't want to make this idea of knowing self complex. In other words, it doesn't require a psychologist to figure it out.
Right.
So, our personality assessment, at the peril of self-disclosure, which we believe is very good, is it helps people to understand themselves and what their strengths and challenges are. So getting people to kind of own their own self and start managing self. So there's actually another step from self-awareness, which most people don't talk about, and that is self-mastery. And so knowing self and knowing I'm a jerk or knowing whatever and not doing anything about it is different than now I'm going to manage self. Number two, we all know this, but we maybe are not take responsibility for it. And Martin Sigelman proved this in Learned Optimism, is our language matters. What we say, how we say it. He even was hired to create happiness clubs with the Girl Guides of the U.S. So what people say, what comes out of their mouth, in other words, optimism and pessimism is measurable and predictable for future success. And so how I respond to these things is a trained skill, a capability that people, again, as you said, being mindful, Ted. So can I be mindful of this situation? And sometimes as coaches or people that are out there, is I actually feed back to you. They don't even know about how negative their language is or what they're saying, and then helping them to reframe and manage how they respond.
Yeah, and Cindy, I think you would agree as well. I mean, we've both experienced, we're both, teacher professionals, and Cindy, I know that you've had students that have come along, particularly, new students that you've worked with, and they've got a very negative speak or a negative talk, if you will. They're always, second guessing the process. They're not confident in their speak. You've had to deal with that, I'm sure, many times, right, Cindy?
It's funny. We have a student right now who's doing our winter package, and he is a freshman in high school, and he's a twin, and his twin is really good at hockey. So the family moved up from the Panhandle, as a matter of fact, Ted, to play hockey for the one brother to play hockey in Buffalo. And this other one has improved immensely, but he is so negative. And he was in yesterday, and it's funny because his dad and mom were both in the Air Force. And needless to say, that they have training and they're resilient. And this poor kid, I would call him a high CS in a disc assessment, Ken. Right. And every time he hits a bad shot, he just shakes his head no. And I said, honey, do you know why the ball just did that? Can you feel what you did with the club to make that happen? again, it's an awareness of what did I just do? I'm the only one touching the club. It's all about personal accountability and responsibility. I looked at his dad and I said, I almost want to say to him, you're not good enough to get this pissed off. But I don't want to say that because the kid's never broken 90 for 18 holes. So I said to him, Kyle, I got to tell you that there's certain levels, and you're at the level where we need to break 90, and the way you're hitting the ball right now, you could break 85. So let's just work on this and not be so negative. You know, it's kind of like we got to teach you to be resilient and resourceful and bounce back. And so, again, I don't know what that trait is. So, Ken, I'm asking you a question in a long way. I said to this young man, I said, I want you to come watch the Porter Cup this summer. The Porter Cup's one of the best amateur tournaments in the country. And I said, I want you to come watch me caddy for our son. And I said, so our son's one of the best players in the country as a mid-am. And I said, I want you to watch how bad he hits the ball and how good he scores. So my kid is a scraper. He kills it. He's always trying to get out of something that he probably doesn't deserve, whereas this kid is browbeating himself. So help me help him, Ken. What do I say?
Well, you also know that there's other inputs that come in here. You have parents. We don't know what the family environment is in terms of what's being said to him. You know, if there's things like, you know, if you were just as good as your brother who plays hockey, if that's going on behind the scenes and you don't know, those are, and you kind of think about too, here you have a junior in college. Hello, they're not going to be as mature as us. So there's that side. That's the encouragement side. Now, because I'm also have a diploma in nutrition and genetics and was misdiagnosed with depression at 19, is health foods actually shift your attitudes too. So if they're eating junk food and they're unhealthy, the blood sugar, and what happened was I was hypoglycemic. I wasn't depressed. So my food intake also affects your attitude and some of those energies, Cindy. So, you know, we have to be holistic in working with them and then helping him just to reframe where it could be just a little thing. Is usually when you're in the emotional moment, it becomes difficult to coach. You know, we do relationship training, so this will be good for you, Ted. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Is that there's a thing, we create a thing for 4-year-olds called timeout. And why do we do that? Because if they get all worked up, they can't emotionally respond. That is actually true for adults. So if couples get into an argument, in my heartbeat goes over 100 beats per minute non-athletic because I'm so upset, then I'm no longer rational. So, Cindy, the conversation has to happen completely outside of the event and start getting him to own how he responds. So it's not so when he's browbeating himself and he's upset, that's not the time to change his behavior. It has to be pre-event. And start getting to think about it. So, okay, what are the strategies? What am I going to say differently? What are you saying now? And start working through some alternative scenarios for himself and then holding him accountable to say, oh, I do say that. So, you know, one of the things we do in coaching of leaders is we get them to break the habit of however and but and no. And every time they say those words to other individuals, say, let's say somebody says something in their team and they say, well, no, but this discounted everything. We charge them $20. So we've had some CEOs have $1,000 on the table at the end of dinner. So that's why I didn't say that. So that's part of that is making that awareness. So here are CEOs that are paid millions of dollars a year unaware of their habits. So, Cindy, I think you start small, and here's the reality. He's doing it now. So how can we take, I love Bill Murray, baby steps to convert how he's thinking about himself. And will he get it to the other side or not? It's still his choice.
Got it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, great answer. We're here with Dr. Ken Keis, the President CEO of Consulting Resource Group International and podcast host of Secrets of Success and so many other great things. And we're going to continue the conversation here in just a moment. But Cindy, let's take a quick short pause and let the folks know something that you're offering as well.
Well, we all know how important it is to build relationships in your business, so have a listen. Everyone knows business deals are made on the golf course. Knowing how to act is just as important as how you hit it. As an LPGA professional and corporate trainer, I offer workshops, seminars, and executive retreats to teach you how to do both. From the back nine to the boardroom, improve your team from the inside out, or Golf 101 for executives might be the perfect fit for your team. Maybe it's time to make some deals on the course. For more information, go to cindymillerinc.com.
And remember, go to cindymillerinc.com after the show, and all of her contact information is there. All right, we're back again with Dr. Ken Keis, and we're talking about really, if I was to sum it up, Ken, I think really the mental game is where a lot of people fall short. I mean, I think it's easier to teach the physical game to most golfers, but it's very, very difficult to help them to understand how to come. And I think one of the issues, and we talk about this, Cindy, on the show before, and that is to really practice with purpose. Have a purpose when you come to the golf course, not just to play the game, but to actually have some sort of a game plan. So can you talk, Ken, a little bit about that? How do we find purpose, particularly for those of us that want to go out and do our best on the golf course? And, you know, as I mentioned earlier, we've got a lot of baggage and a lot of issues. Obviously, it's a process. But what can you suggest to help those listening to the show if they're trying to find a purpose, how they can organize their thoughts in such a way to do that?
Well, again, big question, right? So, well, you're talking about maybe you always like to ask the simple ones, Ted. I love that. So I'm glad we have a sense of humor while I'm just waking up here this morning. Is when we think about there's micro purposes, but then there's also the purpose in life. And if we're coaching kids, we really have to allow them the time to kind of evolve. The last research around the reflective mind is that it really doesn't even anchor till we're 18, 19, 20 years of age. And my wife used to work at a university as an academic coach, and that's why most first-year students change their major 25 times, is they're just figuring it out, right? And so purpose, when you think about my latest book, The Quest for Purpose, and actually we're going to give that as a gift at the end of the show here. We have a special place for you to go and download it, is life leaves clues, Ted. So what we want to do is start paying attention to those things that really excite us, that really engage us, that we enjoy, that are reflective for us. A lot of times in life, especially if somebody's younger, the life that they're leading is what everybody else said that I should be doing, not what internally motivates me. And I remember doing a workshop for a group when I first got in this industry way back in 1989. And we were doing our values assessments, and the person in the back says, none of these values are fulfilled in my life. And I said, well, why is that? He says, well, my whole life I live what my parents want, not what I want. So I think part of people getting clear about how I have purpose is that we start paying attention to those things that really are exciting, that are energizing for us. Sometimes, Ted, it could be that I'm actually enjoying what I'm doing, but I'm not enjoying who I'm doing it with. So you see this in pro sports. We're tennis phenoms as far as watching that sport more than any sport. And you even see how the pros are changing their coaches because there was just some dynamic in the relationship that what didn't have the chemistry. And that's important as well. It might not be the individual themselves. It could be the industry between these two people. And maybe we just can't force that relationship to have that chemistry that we need. So that environment in relationships contribute to it as well, Ted.
Yeah, and I think you have to find your own purpose. You're exactly right in your analogy. I mean, one of the problems is, and as you sort of touched on earlier, is we're getting a lot of dialogue fed to us, whether it be from parents or from friends or from maybe, as we get a little bit older, people who are part of our lives. And depending on what information is coming in, it then gets imprinted in our internal dialogue. And that can affect not just out in the golf course, of course, but that affects other areas of your life. So I think you have to really understand and find your own purpose. And then you have to sort of, I think, surround yourself with people who support that. You know, once you've discovered what it is that you enjoy and what makes you happy, you have to then have people that support that process, because I think a lot of times, you know, we get out there, we've got good ideas and we've got things that we want to do or say, and all of a sudden somebody kicks the proverbial chair out from underneath us because they say, well, you don't want to do that, or you can't do that. And then we start, again, developing that internal dialogue. So that's something, too, I think we have to be cautious of. Would you agree with that, Ken?
Well, actually, I have a statement, so we should do more interviews together. You're so good. Every single person in the planet today with social media and that has an opinion. Very few people have wisdom. And the other research shows is that really my life starts to evolve or reflect my 5 closest friends, so that's important. And then the other one is because we always want this sort of social cred or acceptance, many people worry of what other people think. And the reality is nobody else is going to live your life, and it might not be easier as a younger person, but even older. Oh, Mom, Dad, you're not going to do that. That's a silly thing. You're not going to go back on the tour, Cindy, are you? So everybody has these opinions, and you're right, is to surround yourself with people who are supportive. And the reality is, as we get older, is that we can't be worrying about what other people think, because very soon the life that you're leading is what everybody else wants, not what you want. Now, it doesn't mean I still believe you need to seek wise counsel, have great coaches, have advisors around you, but ones that you trust, that you have vetted, versus, again, everybody has an opinion, but very few people have wisdom.
Yeah, you're right. And this is something, too, you're starting to see this now, Cindy. I've started to notice it with some of the folks that we've had on the show, that both this and the other program I do, Golf Talk Live Thursdays, that are starting to adopt this principle in their teaching. Obviously, again, we're not psychologists and therapists, but we're starting to understand the individual psyche a little bit better. And because we are all individuals and different from one another, we have to treat each other differently. So even as a coach or a teach professional, when we get students coming in, we might have 5 or 6 students in a session. If we're doing group sessions, we have to look at each individual a little bit differently and not try to teach them all and put them all in the same box, because everybody reacts differently to certain situations, and we don't know what's going on outside of the golf course that could be influencing what they do when they come to the lesson tee. So those are things to consider as well. Cindy, go ahead. I know you probably have some other things that you want to ask Ken.
So if someone's listening and they want to reach out to get more information, how would they do that, Ken? And tell us exactly what you do for individuals and corporations and teams.
Okay, well, there's 2 sites that we can send you to. So if you want to learn about all these assessments, and by the way, I don't believe, Ted, that we, and thanks, Cindy, for asking the question, is that the only person who can know themselves is themselves. So this idea that a psychologist is the only person qualified to tell you who you are, I don't believe in that. Right. I believe that we are facilitators to your own clarity. So they can go to crgleader.com and learn about the assessments and tools. And so, HR departments, learning departments, leaders, organizations all around the world access those tools, and schools as well, because what you were saying earlier, Ted, that's why I wrote the book, Why Aren't You More Like Me? So is to understand ourselves. And now for my free gift, that to give you my purpose book, is Ken Keis. Now, Ken Keis is spelled KENKEIS.com/golf. I don't know where I got that from. And there's a hidden URL so that you can download that book. And what we do for people is the tools and resources and assessments. Somebody can go to my site right now and order the values of the personality assessment and take it within a couple of minutes. So it doesn't require certification to use our tools. We believe in learning for the benefit of the individual. And like you, Cindy, I travel around the world as a corporate speaker, trainer, consultant, as a company, as a team here, training other professionals on our assessments, or even just deploying a training program or a workshop for them, or doing a keynote presentation.
Awesome.
Very good. And sorry, go ahead, Cindy.
So one more question. Exactly, tell us what the book is about. You sent me Why Are You Not More Like Me, which I love. Thank you so much. But tell us about the book on purpose.
Well, Ted, you asked this question about purpose. So interesting enough, in 1989, when I got into this industry, I knew I was supposed to speak, but I didn't know about what and who. And Richard Bowles, who's now passed away, he was 92 when he passed away, wrote the book, What Color's Your Parachute? And it was New York Times bestseller. And what I did with the purpose book is this question of what should you do in your life is too big. And so I created really a roadmap, a step-by-step process, which I went through in 1989 with a gentleman named Mike McManus. I hired a coach back then when coaching wasn't big, and he took me through and took 6 months. So we really get people to do the work to get clear. I mean, you don't show up at the course and be a pro-am or a pro golfer just that over the weekend because I decided on Friday. But most people play life that way. So but on the other side, they don't know the questions to ask. So the Quest for Purpose is a roadmap. It includes some assessments or mentions of them. There is narrative questions. There is reflective questions. I get people to do journaling. And we really want them to start paying attention to all elements of their life, not any single item, and so that they can feel whole. So, I mean, even though I might have this great sort of hobby, maybe my career life's not doing so well, or career's well, but my family, I'm just suffering there, or health and wellness. We really look at all of that in the book. And so you do the work, but it's a roadmap to figure that out.
That's awesome. And what's the link again?
It's Ken Keis, KENKEIS.com/golf.
Awesome.
Excellent. Well, we want to thank you we want to thank you, Ken, first off, for providing that to our listeners. And if you want to get your copy of Ken's ebook, it's The Quest for Purpose, a self-discovery process to find it and live it. You can go to kenkeis.com/golf, and it's KENKEIS.com/golf. I just want to ask just one final question based on what you had just said, Ken, and that is, you talked about things at home and you talked about things at work and that, and obviously some parts of your life can be going very, very well, but obviously if there's a chink in some of that armor, eventually it can sort of overlap into other areas. So I think understanding, as you said, self-awareness, understanding yourself in all aspects, in all areas, is important, because I think a lot of people, and men are particularly bad at this, but if things are not going well at home or in some area, they tend to bury themselves in the area of their life, whether it be work or elsewhere, to avoid that. So I think it's important. Would you agree, or how would you sort of summarize that?
Well, we take wherever we are, wherever we go. So all things in life are affecting us. To think that, okay, if things are struggling at home, we call it. We actually have another scale, and it's in the book, Cindy, that I gave you on readiness and willingness. Is that we all have stuff that's affecting us. So maybe you have a colleague and they've always been on time and they've always worked well, and then something seems to be off. And then you find out that, things at home aren't going well. There's a separation that's occurring. Well, we know that actually can have more negative effects on you than even the death of a significant other. So we have to be aware that these stressors do affect us.
Well said. Well, Ken, we want to thank you very much for joining us this morning here on the Women of Golf Show. It's been very an eye-opener, and I hope that the listeners take away from this. I know we didn't talk a lot of golf here on the show today, but we wanted to really give them a little different perspective and something to think about, and obviously they can reach out and get more information. So the best way to reach out to you, Ken, if they're interested in learning more and maybe taking some of the assessments, where can they go to do that?
Well, they can just go to our main site, the crgleader.com, CR and G and then the word leader.com, and all the information about what we do is there. And so they can just reach out, do the contact form. And thanks again for having me on. I had some fun with you this morning.
Thank you so much, Ken. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
We appreciate you getting up early and spending some time with us, and we thank you for that. And we hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much, Ken, and all the best.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both.
Bye-bye.
All right, that was Dr. Ken Keis, one of the foremost global authorities on behavioral assessment. And Cindy, it's very interesting. He's offered a very special gift for our listeners. We'll tell them that once again here in just a moment. But you've obviously had the opportunity to work with Ken a little bit and obviously read some of his books. What do you find most that he's been able to? Is there anything specific that he's been able to help you with?
Well, you know what? I think it's just awareness. Do you really know yourself? And how you think people perceive you may not be the truth. So like he mentioned, 95% of the people think they know themselves. And when you ask others what their opinion and how they perceive you, you're about 10% right. You think you're 95% right, but you're 10% right. So be aware of the reactions of others. And again, for me, it comes back down to my it box. What are you willing to get off the nail and do something about it? Do you want to just keep hitting it bad, or do you want to get better? It could be, your golf game, your business, or your life. And then are you willing to really look in the mirror and find out who you are and become aware of it, number one? And then are you willing to try to master yourself? And then number two, plant the seed and do something about it. So that's what this is all about, in my opinion.
Well said. And just one more time, we're going to make you all aware of Ken's very generous offer. I've already downloaded my copy, of course, but for those of you that are interested in getting a copy of his free ebook, The Quest for Purpose, a self-discovery process to find it and live it, you can go to kenkeis.com/golf, and it's KENKEIS.com/golf. And it looks to be like a very interesting book, and I'm going to be digging into my copy, and I will also post it up in the link to my social media pages as well. For those of you that maybe aren't going to tune in until a little bit later, you can access it directly from my Facebook account and so forth. But Cindy, very interesting guest. I really enjoyed having him. And we'll have to have him back on again, perhaps on a future show as well. But what have you got cooking? I know you're getting ready here a little bit later this week. Remind the folks you're going to be heading down to Orange County National.
We are. We're going to Orange County for 2 boot camps for juniors. And then we've got an adult boot camp. And just a side note, anybody that wants free golf tips, go to cindymillerinc.com/improve. So if you're interested in getting free video golf tips to help you get better, cindymillerinc.com/improve.
And I can guarantee you that you will yield results from doing so. So make sure you do that. Cindy, it's always a pleasure. I look forward. Next week, I believe, we are going to have back on the show Gianna Rojas. For those of you that aren't familiar with her, Gianna is referred to as the one-handed lady golfer, and she is an inspiration. I met her face-to-face for the first time. Of course, she's been a guest a number of times on our show, both here and on my other program, Golf Talk Live, and she really is an advocate, if you will, for those that maybe have disabilities, and she's trying to make them aware that if she's able to go out there and play golf with her disability, that you can as well. And she's trying to encourage and empower literally the millions of people around the world, and she's been getting a lot of notoriety over the last several years. So she's going to be coming on next week on the show, so we're looking forward to that as well. And as always, Cindy, good luck down at boot camp. I know that you're working and Alan are diligently working to help golfers improve and just to have a great experience. So good luck with that next week. And as always, I enjoy partnering up with you. And I think we're going to have to add that no BS zone to our show. I think it could be a lot of fun. We'll have some fun with that. I think we got to spice. Yeah, we got to spice it up a little bit on the show. So we may, I may throw in a no BS zone for next week. So, but on that note, thank you on behalf of Cindy Miller, and I'm Ted Odorico. Welcome and thank you for joining us this week on the Women of Golf Show, and we'll see you next time here on the Women of Golf. God bless everybody. Thanks, Cindy.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Thanks for listening this morning to the Women of Golf Show. Tune in live each week by visiting blogtalkradio.com/Women of Golf, or on any of these social media platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, CastBox, TalkStream Live, and of course Spotify. If you can't join us live, check out our on-demand section for previously aired broadcasts. To get updates for future shows and upcoming guests, you can follow us on Facebook at Women of Golf. You can also follow me on Twitter at Ted and Buck CEO and Cindy at Cindy Miller Golf. Please remember to join us next week on the Women of Golf Show. See you next time. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.